This video is going to act as a guide for the first project in the course here, where you are going to be building a game environment and an immersive environment so that you can see and experience both in terms of working with the Unreal Editor, but also as well practicing importing assets and actors and actually placing them into the environment. So per our project document, the first thing that I'm actually going to do is I'm going to generate the project. So I'm going to go ahead here and launch Unreal. I'm not going to actually open a pre-existing project. I want to go ahead and make sure that I am generating a brand new project. So first step, I'm going to make a brand new project here. It is going to be a games project. I'm going to say next, but for this demo and for this project, instead of using blank, because we want to move around in the environment, we're going to choose first person. Now, it's not going to be perfect because you're still going to have the gun as far as being able to shoot things and stuff like that, but it's a good starting point and a good practice as far as just having some experience with one of the templates available to you in Unreal. So making sure that you have that selected, go ahead and say next. Now again, under your project settings here, remember, you're going to have a location where you want to store the project, but then this name portion is the important part. That is the main folder for holding your entire Unreal project. So I'm going to go ahead and call this maybe MMC170 Proj1. Now, the only other thing that you have to make a decision on here is if you think looking at some of the marketplace elements, are you going to need the starter content or not? For the items that I've picked out that I want to add to my project, I don't actually need the starter content. So I'm going to actually change this over to no starter content. It just shaves a little bit of file size off the overall project. So I'm going to go ahead and create project. If you haven't done so already, at this point, you're going to want to navigate back as far as the Epic Games launcher here. And let's go back and either you have gone through your marketplace and looked at some elements that you would like to add to your project, and you've added them into your vault, which we did in a previous video. And now it's time to kind of choose, okay, what would I like to work with here as far as the overall layout and design for creating my environment? So I've gone through already and kind of picked out some items here. I have an old fantasy and medieval architecture item that I'd like to add to my project. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Add to Project. And as you can see, any and all projects that are currently active that I have stored in my folder are available for this. So here's that new project that I just made, my project 1. So I'm going to choose to add to project. Just to draw your attention now down here, we didn't talk about this in a previous video, but now at this point, what is happening is, yes, the Vault element is now being downloaded from the internet, and all of the actors and assets will be stored directly in this project folder. This is where you start to add on as far as file size to Unreal projects. So I'm going to go ahead and let that download for a minute. There was one other one I wanted to also work with here. There was a kind of like a, here it is, yes, the Dark Forest. So kind of got some architecture going on for my environment, but also too, I figured get kind of some foliage going on as well. So here you can see now down in the medieval, it's installing, it's verifying, it's gone through the download process. And now we should be good to go here. What I'm actually going to do is I'm also going to choose the Dark Forest. I'll come down, select that project, and add to project. So once again, it's going to go through and kind of think about it. And I'm going to hop back into my project here. Now, when you work with one of the pre-made environments here, this is going to be step 3. You've gone through, you've picked out some of the content that you'd like to work with. Now it's actually time to make your own level and kind of start generating the overall design. So what I'm going to do here is under File, I'm going to tell it to make a brand new level for me. Now, with new levels, even in your baseline design here, you're always going to have 4 choices, either a time of day, a default, an empty, or a VR basic. I would tell you start off with the default. When you click on default, you can see now it kind of got rid of all of that stuff in that previous level for me. Just to show you here, if I hit the play button, notice that already my character, my first person view is already ready to go. Yes, we've got the gun and, the ammo, but we'll work with that for this first project. This would be a point now that I would really encourage folks to follow as far as your steps go. You're now going to save the level. So I'm going to go ahead and go under File, and I'm going to choose Save Current. Save Current is going to want to put this into your game folder, which is the content folder. So I'm going to call this, my last name underscore project 1 and save it. So there you can see now it's popped up down in the content browser. You really don't want this file going anywhere else. So now you have your working project file. As you can see actually down in my content area, both Dark Forest and Fantasy Village have imported in. At this point, I'm now ready to actually start laying out my level. Now, one of the things I do talk about in your project walkthrough, and this would be the next step, changing how large the ground floor plane is. To do this, I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to come over under the details panel. I am going to do a 10 by 10 for X and Y, and I'm going to leave Z at 1. I would not go any larger than 10 by 10. For this project at a maximum, I would encourage you, try to keep it 10 by 10. Anything larger, honestly, at that point, you might want to start thinking about in terms of actually using a landscape. Also, too, you want this project to be able to be saved and not take up a lot of space. Lastly, you're now ready to dive in. And I can come in, for instance, under Fantasy Village. If I go under like meshes here, you can see that I've got some walls, I've got bricks. I can start adding, like maybe I want to add a street lamp into the game here. So I'll click and drag that. And again, it's going to think for a second while it goes through that process. I've even got some signs in here that I can play with. But now this is kind of the part where you get to work with and do a lot of the overall immersion for the game. So there you can see I went and I placed my little lamppost there. So now begins the process of actually laying out your game. Just remember, save often. In another video, I'm going to show you that once you have completed this, how you can actually record the screen and get a video so that you can upload and share that with the class as far as Floop is concerned.